Hi, I'm Hedrick Smith. How about a pop quiz on American politics? I think you're going to like this quiz if you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s because it's a lot about you, Millennials and Gen X-ers, but everyone else too. The question is, what's the fastest growing political party or movement in American politics over the past 15 or 20 years? Now, if you're wavering between Republicans and Democrats, forget it. The fastest growing movement is political independence. NPAs, they call them, no party affiliation. People who shun the party label and turn their backs on parties. Back in 2004, 27% of Americans told Gallup Poll they were political independents. This year, 40%. 40%. And among people under 40 years of age, 44, 45%. Now, that's a huge chunk of the American electorate. But political independents don't begin to have the power, the voice, the clout that those numbers suggest. It is true that they can swing battleground states in a presidential election. But year in and year out, in most elections, they're shut out. They don't take part. And it's kind of unfair when you think about it because independents, like the rest of us, are taxpayers, and taxpayers pay for elections. But independents don't get to vote in party primaries, the Republican or Democratic primary in your state. You may not pay much attention to party primaries, but you should, because in about 85% of the congressional races across the country, and in the vast majority of legislative races in all 50 states, it's the primaries that are the deciding, decisive election. Win the primary, and it's your ticket to elected office. And primaries are often tilted pretty hard to the left or to the right. Turnout is small. People who vote tend to be party regulars, ideological diehards who go for extreme candidates. Fringe groups and big money donors have influence. So by the time the general election rolls around, political independents are pretty disappointed or disgusted with the choices that the parties have given them in the general election. So some of them opt out, saying, my vote doesn't count. Now, sadly, unfortunately, they're right. Their vote doesn't count for much in the general election. The battle's already over. And that's not good for American democracy. We need them in the game. After all, independents outnumber Republicans and they outnumber Democrats. So to be fair, we got to have them taking part. But the question is, how do we give them a stake to get back in the game? Well, this year down in Florida, there's a group called All Voters Vote, and their idea is to hold a non-partisan primary. Not one party or another, but everybody running together, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Greens, Libertarians, anyone, and all voters vote, including independents. Well, that idea has caught fire in Florida, and about 760,000 people have signed petitions to put that proposal before Florida voters and try to adopt that system in the election this fall. You say, well, what difference is that going to make? Well, talk to 3.6 million Floridians. That's how many political independents, how many NPAs there are. And many of them are young people. They'll immediately get a vote if that system passes. But the other thing that happens that's really important is the dynamics of political campaigns change. If all voters vote, then to win, a candidate has to appeal across party lines. Negative ads, partisan warfare, extremism don't sell very well when you're trying to appeal all the way across the board to the full political spectrum. It's moving towards the center, moderation, pragmatism that pays off. But the nice thing is we already have evidence. Since 2008, Washington State has been using a top two nonpartisan primary system just about like the one they're looking at in Florida. And it has had a major impact. First of all, turnout is up. Secondly, it is true. More middle-of-the-road candidates do better. There are a couple of people who've made it into Congress who never would have made it under the old party primary system. The biggest payoff of all comes from when they go to Washington and they're in Congress. 7 Democrats and 3 Republicans from Washington State. There's an outfit called govtrack.us that tracks the voting records of members of the House of Representatives. And what they tell you is only one of the 10 people from Washington State votes in the outer 15%, the fringe of their party. And the other 9 representatives from Washington State all play towards the middle of the field, the place where moderation and compromises take place. So this system is helping independents, moderate candidates, and helping to rebuild the middle in Washington state. My charge to you is take a look. Take a hard look at Washington state. Look at California, which also has a top 2 non-primary system. And then think about having a nonpartisan primary movement in your state. One final thought before we part. Please vote this year. Our democracy depends on every single vote. This is a critical election. So vote. And thanks.